Welcome, everyone, to the Wednesday night live show. We've got a special guest joining us tonight for the first time on the show. Matt Culley will be joining us. Matt sits on the board of CASAA. Hey, wait, I got double play in here. Hold on. Oh, YouTube was playing on the background. He sits on the board of CASAA as a board secretary and treasurer, and is also a long time YouTube vape reviewer. What the hell, Paul, was that? Matt.
That was an interesting noise.
Yeah, I thought he was going to break out into like, what is that, rapping and start scratching records or something like that. Matt's going to shed some light on the situation with YouTube and his role over at CASAA. But before we get into that, a big shout out to Amanda Wheeler and the Rocky Mountain Smoke-Free Alliance for their hard work in Colorado getting Bill HB 221064 to a 5-2 no vote. So let's give them a hand, guys. That's awesome. Good hard work.
Yeah, that was really cool.
Yeah. It was a shocker.
I think there's less appetite for. I mean, obviously, there's still some people that want to do it, but there's less appetite for flavor bans than there was during the height of the E-Valley scare, and especially right now, like with uncertain economic times. I think a lot of these legislators are like, "Wait, do we really want to get rid of 1,000 jobs right now?"
Yeah. I mean, I looked at the stats. It was over 2,000 jobs, and I forget how much money. And of course, you know, anytime they lose, they always seem to find a reason for them losing, and it's always like, oh, well, we need the tax money right now, or it's too close to the end of legislation. We can't work on. Just say you lost. Get over, pass it, get over it, and let's move on. I don't want to hear your excuses of why you didn't think this bill passed. Let's say hello to Mr. Tim Swift up there. Hello, Tim. How are you doing, and how's your week?
I'm stressed right now, John. I'm stressed beyond belief right now. I think those little pills that Fred Sanford used to take, on the TV show. Either that or I just
Sanford
need the whole.
Son?
Yeah. Well, I used to take these little sugar pills or something. I remember he used to. Anyway, I feel like I'm constantly going to get ready to just keel over and have a heart attack watching this game. So, huge hockey fan. No spoilers. Don't worry, I'm watching the game anyway. So if something good or bad happens, I'll already know. So, other than that, things are busy. I am so busy lately. I don't even have time to think. It's like the day just sweeps by me.
I pulled an old video up today.
I saw it right before the show.
Tim Swift before he was introduced to RGB, and it was funny to see that video with nothing behind Tim, no RGB, no light, just him and his camera.
Yeah, I had no flair in my life. I looked very homogenized in that video.
Yeah,
and it looked like I thought you guys. It sounded like I thought you guys were deaf or something. I'm like yelling into the microphone. I forget that microphones actually pick up your voice.
Yeah, let's say hello to Paul. Where's your Fosters?
You're a stalker. No drinking. No drinking today. I was actually going to ask Matt, has he tried any very good whiskeys recently? But that's for a bit later on in the day.
Okay, yeah, I'll wait.
Yeah, he's just being a good boy because you're on the show today, Matt. He said no drinking. He's going to be on his game. He was just, come on.
Oh, don't stay sober on my account. I mean, I've been smoking pot since 420, so.
I haven't stopped since 420.
I try to limit myself. I feel guilty if I do it in the middle of the day, even if it's something mindless. Like if I'm editing, I know I could be stoned, but I still don't do it because I feel like I have to have some rules.
Yeah, you got to set some rules.
Oh well, I'm in the same boat. So yeah, happy 420. It's not a problem.
Yeah, I couldn't do it in the afternoon. I'd eat so much cereal. I would be so full before dinner. I can't see myself doing it in the afternoon.
That's why you need sativa. That way you'll just paint the house like 14 times before the show. So you'll be good.
Yeah.
And you just need to use it often enough. Because I go through these different like times where like I'm drinking more whiskey for a few months and I'm not really smoking much pot, and then I go back to pot and it just like I couldn't do anything. So like if I'm like using it every evening, then I feel pretty fine doing most tasks you know, but like if I don't use it for a couple of months, then I can't even talk.
And let's say hello to our guest, Mr. Matt, joining us for the first time here on the Wednesday Night Live show. How's your week going, Matt?
Very, very good. Yeah. It's been long, but so far so good.
Nice. And we're really happy to have you on the show. And I was glad to get you on the other show first and get everybody to see a different side of you. And it was fun seeing you on the other show. So I was like, I got to try to get Matt on here. So I'm glad you're here.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
And Tim's going to do our favorite part of the show. Tim?
Yeah, I got to do some scrolling. I gotta defeat this carpal tunnel that I'm battling, which I don't really have carpal tunnel. But hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Love to see all of our returning fans and friends and everybody that joins us every week. So Shannon, hey, nice to see you again. How are you? Mr. Curtis Clemens, good to see you, brother. Good to always see you in that. But Curtis has got some issues. Curtis is in the clink for a while. Yeah, he's not the real clink, but he's in Facebook jail for a while. So we'll talk to him about that later. Green Thumb, good to see you, man. How you doing?
Green Thumb.
Who else? I know. I thought I saw Luke in here earlier, but maybe
he was in here. He gave me shit and left. Is what he did.
Is that what Luke does now? He just comes in and drops bombs and leaves.
Yeah, he drops bombs. Tells me how much better the weather is.
That's it. Well, we've got 13 watching, so there's way more eyeballs on this show than there are in the chat. So everybody chime in, put your comments in, ask questions of us, ask questions of Matt. That's why we're here.
Yeah, Matt's going to be here to talk a little bit about everything tonight, and the big part of it is one of the things I really wanted to talk to you about, because we're seeing it again. I don't know, it comes in cycles in this industry and community, but I always find it curious how others deal with frustration within the community and the industry as years go by and things get a bit frustrating. How does Matt keep the fire going? How do you keep the fire going?
Oh, you just accept that you're going to be burnt out sometimes, but it usually passes. I mean, I've been burnt out dozens and dozens of times, and there's been times when I've pulled back a little bit from, some social media and advocacy stuff, and then there's times where I'm more involved. And I think at first I used to feel guilty about that, but I think in order to have like the longevity, you got to like when you're not feeling it, just take some time. Like, don't force yourself. If you force it, then things get worse, and you're going to burn out and crash, and it could be much more severe.
Yeah, I mean, I've even told people, I've seen some others do it too, that have been really heavy into the advocacy. Just shut it off for two or 3 days. Just shut off Facebook, shut off Twitter, go away, drink some wine, chill out, and come back refreshed. And sometimes you just need to, I hate saying the reset button, but, sometimes you need that little reset, get away from it, and just focus on other things.
Agree.
Yeah,
sure. Especially Twitter. I have to back off of Twitter. Yeah, every so often. It's not for the sake of the community. The people in the community are great, but it's just never ending. It's just ongoing, and it's like after a while you're just like, man, I just can't do this. I need a couple days away from it, man. It's just
social media and not just advocacy related stuff, just social media in general. Like
it's
can
exhausting.
Stress me out, and sometimes I realize like I'm anxious right now. Like I need to. I need to take a break.
Yeah. What I noticed a few people, and it's funny because there's quite a few. We are all friends with a lot of them on Twitter, but I noticed that I don't know if they're using it as a way to kind of relieve their stress, but like every other day, just a goofy ass post on Twitter just to make you laugh, or something totally off topic about something totally different than what you normally post, and can kind of help set kind of calm you down a little bit. You get a little bit of response. So maybe work that into your schedule, guys that are out there. I mean, every now and then, your Twitter doesn't have to be, 10 posts every day about advocacy. Throw in something funny in there, you'll be surprised. And then on top of that, you might draw in somebody that's outside of our community that come and say, hey, this guy's funny, whatever. I'm going to start following him. And then who knows, maybe eventually get him on board.
I mean, I think that's a good approach. I try to separate the two just from a social perspective because on Facebook, I don't really do much with vaping at all, just because my audience is not such that I would really get the support that I'm looking for, or the shares, or sort of the perpetuation of the commentary. It would probably just result in me having some horrific post that I have to fight half of my friends on. And then Twitter is the exact opposite, and so I kind of feel like I have that balance between the two. But again,
like I'll occasionally tweet something not vape related, but usually it gets less, interest, just because it's, my account is obviously geared towards vape. Usually.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think pretty much all of our account, I kind of try to mix it up and change things up every now and then and throw different things in there. And Facebook's another thing altogether. I mean, it's just, I get it. Some of us have accounts that we just, it's family and friends, and we don't want to bring in, that the vape stuff into it and kind of keep politics out of it. But it's gotten to the point where, you almost have to be, you have to pretty much type it out, read it like 6 times, and hope to God that you're not going to get, shut down by Facebook for, something written in there that's going to, get them to open their eyes and shut you down for 24 hours, which I think everybody on this group has been shut down from Facebook. No, not you yet. You still a virgin? You still a virgin?
Yeah, I've gotten a couple warnings about posts, and then I've had like some response comments removed for some dumb reason, which had nothing to do with any kind of violence or any kind of attacks. Most of the time it's for commenting too fast or something, like, almost like they think I'm a robot or something like that.
Yeah, that one
maybe I
you.
am. I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't
that
checked.
one will get you. So let's jump into the YouTube thing. And Paul let me in. I didn't even see it. Paul talked about it in our chat, but I didn't realize he got a strike today too. DJ LSB.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
I hope we didn't jinx him, because we said last week on the show is the only one that didn't get hammered yet.
You guys did. It's all your fault.
Son of a bitch. No, we apologize, Daniel. I doubt it, seriously. But yeah, we this channel has been through it, Matt. I mean, we ran into a big issue a few months back, and I took care of the first one, and then all of a sudden somebody went on the Zamblebox YouTube channel and just started reporting video after video after video after video, and they shut us down for a good long 3 weeks. And unfortunately, the only way I could fix the problem was to actually wipe out every single video Zamblebox ever put up on this channel, and to get rid of them on. And we talked about how some of that stuff was hardware, safety videos and battery safety videos that we're trying to put back on the channel. But I mean, your situation was very strange.
Yeah, I definitely think that they probably are a little bit harder on an account like Zamblebox, because it is a company, you know, and so that's probably why. And there was probably like some self-promotion or like some calls to action saying go to our site type of thing. And that's what they seem to be getting stricter on. The no links policy has been around for 3 years or so now.
Yeah.
But now they're getting stricter on the telling people, like, if someone says go to this website, or if someone puts a website URL up on the screen, even if it's not clickable, or like in my case, and I don't know if it was the algorithm or if it was a person, but I originally got a strike for showing a manual that had a vape website's URL on the manual. And I know for a fact that was the reason, because YouTube told me, they gave me the timestamp for the offending, matter, and that the timestamp was that manual. Thankfully, like a couple days later, they decided to take the strike away, even after telling me they couldn't do anything. So that was great. But I think, I mean, so now you got to be worried about, what you had in old videos, what kind of packaging you showed, do
you feel they would go back on videos for that?
I mean, yeah, possibly. Possibly. But I mean, I don't know, because they did overturn my strike. So that tells me that maybe they're deciding that they don't want to go that far, where if it's on packaging and it's accidental. But, if somebody like flashed up a URL on the screen, or maybe promoted a certain company with their logo or whatever, I don't know where their line is. YouTube tends to do this. It's like they tweak their algorithm. It's usually in the spring. It's usually in like April, May time. That's when these strikes happen. And then sometimes it's like in the fall too. Like it'll be like once in the spring, once in the fall. And so it's almost like every year, like clockwork now, like come May, you start seeing people get hit.
Yeah. Yeah, we were talking about this last week. I remember when the link thing came out, and then everybody was kind of just flashing it real quick up on the screen, but like Tim pointed out, a majority of us aren't going to that link. We're going to the actual website to buy a product. We're not actually going to Smock's corporate page. We're not actually going to whatever's written. 95% of the time, whatever's on the box is going to be a corporate email or a corporate site.
Yeah, and a lot of them don't even directly sell those products. Some of them do, some of them don't. And so,
well, I was also saying too that the majority of the people that watch people like Matt or Mike or any of the reviewers out there, we're already in the know anyway. So we're really just kind of watching the video to get some background on the device that is being talked about. So we already know the websites, in our head. So if it was never shown on the screen, it wouldn't affect any of us. Now, with someone who might be interested a little bit deeper to know more about what's going on, might help them. But I just don't know that they're that imperative to see.
Look, I mean, a lot of people, every time this happens, we see a lot of the same responses. YouTube is trying to kill vape content, so on and so forth. I mean, I kind of feel like if that was the goal, like they could have done that a long time ago. I mean, the Valley time would have been perfect.
Oh, yeah.
To just wipe out the vape content.
True
and just
point,
say, we don't know what it was. We don't know how people are dying. This is harmful and dangerous content. Boom. Yeah. So, I wouldn't jump to that conclusion, but I definitely think they're getting stricter and stricter. And these rules are supposed to be for cannabis channels, gun channels, alcohol channels. Some, they seem to go softer on the alcohol channels, though, I've noticed. And, basically they don't want a minor to somehow find some link to some nefarious site that's going to sell them, drugs or a gun or booze or whatever. So I understand it, but like, there's got to be like some nuance to it. Like, obviously, if someone's accidentally showed a website on some packaging, like the intent is not there. They're not trying to freaking get people to go to that site.
Do you feel, this is a stretch, but do you feel, let's be honest, everything comes down to dollars. Even with YouTube, it's dollars. Do you think because maybe China, or let's just say these manufacturers of this hardware, they don't advertise on YouTube. They don't send any advertising dollars to YouTube. Do you feel that maybe that's pushing it a little bit for YouTube to go this route? Maybe it isn't about wiping out vape reviews, but actually wiping out free advertisement on YouTube for a manufacturer.
I don't think so. I mean, to be completely honest with you, I think that it's just something like alcohol is a lot more accepted in society. Yeah. And there's a lot more people that they don't get demonetized as much, even though technically they probably should, according to the guidelines, just because a lot of the companies don't care when it's alcohol. And so, I mean, there's a lot of different types of content out there that's age restricted or that's demonetized that YouTube allows. Again, if they wanted to wipe us out, they could have done it years ago. And so I just don't. I think their main reason for not wiping us out. First off, it's not really YouTube style. They very rarely completely ban a whole type of content unless it's like extremist, terrorist stuff or whatever. But also, they have their viewers to be concerned about. And if you start just knocking off these little niches, like guns or vapes or what a cannabis or whatever, those viewers are also watching, advertiser friendly content as well. And if you lose them completely, they're probably not going to come back. So, I think it just comes down to they don't want to come off as looking too puritanical or like they're censoring too much because they don't want to lose, more users, especially when they're competing. They have bigger competitors now, like TikTok and stuff like that.
Right.
Not saying that it's 1-to-1. I'm just saying that's where they're sharing eyeballs.
Yeah.
Which is strange to me, though, because the one thing I can't I don't go looking for it either, but one thing I have not seen on TikTok is vape-related information. I haven't seen reviewers on there. I haven't seen advertisements. I've seen of all the things vape related, I saw one story that a girl was telling that reminiscently sounded way too much like an Valley story. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I bought a Juul and then all of a sudden I was in the hospital needing a double lung transplant. That kind of story. So I there was that.
Yeah.
She didn't vape in the video. Obviously, she was against it at that point. And I think I've seen people holding a disposable but never actually use it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a decent amount of vape content on there. I don't know how popular it is, but I know this because I'm constantly being told that there's these different channels that take my videos and cut them up and put them on TikTok.
Oh,
so now, like, I'm at the point where it's like, you know, if I can't stop that, I might as well just start doing it myself, and I can age restrict those posts or whatever. You know, I think a lot of the vape reviewers on YouTube originally didn't go over to TikTok because it was viewed as a platform that had a lot of younger viewers.
Yeah.
But now that it's gotten so big, and there's actually a good amount of adults on there too, a lot of adults on there. I mean, if you look at the amount of users, it's rivaling YouTube now. It's insane.
Yeah,
sure.
So now that it's more mainstream, I may start taking some of my videos and just cutting them up into shorter clips and putting them on there if other people are going to do it anyway, you know?
What is I think it's 1 minute, right? Is it the same as?
I think it's longer now. It
I
think they made it longer.
Yeah.
It depends what your account is. Some accounts, they're limited to like 30 seconds, 45 a minute, and then I have seen longer ones, but now you can actually string them together to make up a 3 or 4 minute video. That's how
crazy.
they're doing it.
Yeah, and I read something like they're starting to allow some creators, like their popular ones, like 10 minutes and stuff. Like they're really going after YouTube here with, you know, I think, you know, there's certain like age demographics that are always going to stick with YouTube, probably people our age, stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
But I mean, if you start picking off those younger generations, like and they stay there because there's all the content they would want is there, you know, then like YouTube's going to be in trouble in a few decades.
It's crazy. An app that was really designed for dancing. That's how that app started. It was all about dance.
It's more quite a bit.
It
is wild.
Oh man.
I had a question about YouTube though, because I mean, I don't make any content anymore on there.
You're doing it right now.
Yeah, well, it's different. This is different. I'm just saying. I mean, it's been a while since I've kind of like made my own content. But my question is more about the vaping angle. I mean, obviously, YouTube puts protections in place. You know, obviously, when you create a video, you know, they're going to say, is this kid friendly? That's your first layer, and then beyond that, you know, then you have the ability to choose whether or not you want people 18 and under or 18 and over to view this content as well. If you had both of those flagged, why wouldn't those fail safes be enough to effectively stop some of the censoring that, if you want to call it that, that they're doing? Why doesn't it just stop there?
Well, that's what they have been doing. They've definitely been like, over the last year, they started age restricting a lot. They kind of warned us, which again, I'm not trying to like give YouTube too much praise here. I fucking cuss at them all the time under my breath, but like they did warn us. I remember getting an email about 2 years ago saying, we're thinking about, you know, with your type of content, you know, age restricting more of it, and we would like to get input from your community. And at the time, I gave them my input. So they are doing that, but they still are all. I thought we were done with strikes too, because that's like, okay, they're just age restricting everything now. But then it may, you know, here comes May, and it's like they tweak their algorithm, and you know, now we see strikes. And keep in mind, like majority, almost 99.9% of the time, it's the algorithm that's catching you. It's not because someone flagged you, or because someone at YouTube is you know, watching your videos. That algorithm catches you. So what I think happened is they tweaked their algorithm to now start looking for vape site URLs in the actual video, and it's picking those up. But now they're realizing, wait, not every vape site URL is the same. Sometimes it's just on packaging. Sometimes they wrote it up there. Like, we should maybe treat those two things differently. And so they're kind of stuck in the weeds again. But as far as age restriction on YouTube goes, the one reason why I don't do it just manually when I upload is that even if you do it manually, YouTube will still do it anyway if they deem it needs to be age restricted, because they don't want you to be able to have the ability to unage restrict it. You know what I'm saying? And second, it's not that I want youth to watch my videos. I have the percentage of underage viewers that I have is very, very low. But if you age restrict, then anyone that doesn't have a YouTube account will never be able to find your content. So, and that's how I first found vaping content. I did not have a YouTube account. I was just Googling, and YouTube videos were popping up in Google. But if that video is age restricted, it's not going to pop up in Google, and that potential smoker trying to research vaping won't find it.
Won't find it. I didn't know that. It's good to know.
So that's the tough thing. It's like none of us want minors to watch, but if you age restrict, like, you're making it way less discoverable for everyone.
Right. So you curb some of your audience that you could otherwise have.
Paul, do you have a question for Matt? You've been quiet over there in Australia.
No, well, I am quiet sometimes, but going back to what Matt said, it is like every year at the same time. It's almost like they've got a new intern working at YouTube in the background, and all of a sudden they've changed something, or there's a new coder that's working there, and it's like sometimes you can set your clock to it.
Yeah, I think May just must be their time. I vaguely remember like one year it started in April, but usually it's May. It just must be their time to start testing out their new algorithms, and like we all get fucking hit and have to be all stressed out about it in the process. And sometimes people don't get, their strikes overturned. Like, you really got to push on YouTube sometimes to even take a second look. Like, you appeal it, sometimes they'll deny your appeal in 2 minutes, which tells you, okay, a human probably didn't watch this. Then you have to email them. You get one person that tells you they can't do anything. Then you get another person that says they're going to look into it for you. Like, so I just pester them when this happens to me. Like, I had 2 strikes taken off back in December from some old bullshit that I've been trying to get them to take off for a long time. Well, it was a warning strike and then a regular strike. Sorry, I wasn't trying to flip anybody off. But, and then with this new strike, they told me I can't do anything. And there's just nothing else we can do. And then I talk to another person and they look into it, and all of a sudden it gets fixed. So it's like, it's in the meantime, everybody's stressing and worried about losing their channel. It sucks.
Yeah, and they keep throwing out, they're throwing out the same word YouTube is throwing out, community standards. Well, that's a huge thing. I mean, there's so much that goes into community standards. Exactly what did I do wrong? And it's like, on the Facebook side, you're never going to get an answer. You're just going to have to wait out the 24 hours and come back. But like you said, YouTube, at least YouTube has a customer service. They actually have people there.
Yeah, and they have guidelines where they actually mention vaping in their guidelines, which is nice. They didn't mention vaping for the longest time, but then for like the last year and a half, they mentioned it. And so at least we know exactly where we stand. And according to them, basically, they don't say we're going to age restrict all vape content, but they do say, any reviews or promotions of cannabis products or vaping products, tobacco products, could get age restricted. And like, I think I've noticed I get age restricted more often if I have vape in my title. So like, say there's a company like Geek Vape, I get age restricted more often on those. I get age restricted more often on pod systems and disposable stuff, things like that, which I kind of get. Like, if you're going to, not saying I want to be age restricted at all, but if you're going to age restrict, age restrict the stuff that the youth tend to use more. We don't see the youth using stuff like this very often.
Right. No.
And so, that makes sense. But so at least they mention us in their guidelines, but then out of left field, something like this happens, and then you're like questioning everything again.
Yeah. Well, we talked about you guys going to the Twitter side to get your shit taken care of. And I know we talked about how Paul did it. And I think you did the same thing.
Yeah,
correct?
I usually bitch on Twitter. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But like in this instance, I think it worked because my screenshot looked so freaking dumb.
Yeah.
Like, I got a strike for that. I think they kind of like had to do something on.
Yeah, they had to look deeper. Like, okay, we can't have this. I mean, it's on it's on, like we talked about on the show. It's on the front and the back of boxes, and it's usually 99% of the time it's a corporate customer service at Geek Vape or
Yeah, but who the hell sees that shit unless you're like freeze framing the video?
Just
Yeah, like
algorithm that YouTube has.
Yeah,
Nobody
here's a quality control card. You flick it and throw it to the side, and it's like on the screen for like not even 10 seconds.
And like your intention should matter. Like if I'm holding that up and I hold it up to the screen and I say, "Yeah, here's their website. Go to this site."
Yeah,
that's different.
That makes sense, know. But if it's like just as I'm unboxing a product, here's your manual. Like, come on. I obviously do not have like these nefarious ideas of getting youth to go to this website.
I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when you saw that strike and you realized what it was, and your face is like, really? What the fuck? Are you kidding?
Holy shit! At first, I'm like, if this is what they're gonna get us on, like we're all fucked.
Yeah. Well, I had 2 points on that matter. So, in terms of the, do you think that some of the, whether it's the tweaking of the algorithms, do you think some of that is also manifested in the idea of, say, potential legal liability? Like they got a bunch of lawyers that are sitting around going, well, you don't want to get into that fight with this whole thing. It's better that if you just shut them down and lock them down than to really sort of appease them and give them their second chances.
Yeah, that they probably do have lawyers involved, and I'm sure they have people combing through videos. And remember, this is not just us. Yeah. There's probably channels out there that are, abusing the rule. So, okay, you won't let me have links, then I'm going to flash links up on my screen, and I'm going to tell you to go to this website, and so on and so forth. And so they probably figured, okay, we got to get a little stricter with this because they're just circumventing our rules. But then they make an algorithm that, is just a computer, and it's just anytime it sees a freaking link that, might go to a vape site, it's going to ding you.
One other question. What about barcodes and QR codes? Are they going to hone in on that? That's another big story shit.
Yeah, they definitely could. I mean, I would like to think that they're, and again, this is
that would suck. I'm sorry.
But I would like to think that they're reasonable enough to be like, okay, we're not going to go back and ban these channels because they showed barcodes on packaging 3 years ago before they even knew that it might be a potential issue. But they're corporate overlords. So
can you imagine having to go back on all your videos, Matt, to take out any shots of barcodes?
I couldn't. I'd probably just have to delete.
Just delete them.
Or blur them out.
Even the time to try to watch that many videos just to see where it's at. It's like I wouldn't be able to do it. I would have, if I got multiple strikes on that particular issue, I would probably have to go back and just wipe out majority of my videos. And basically start fresh.
Yeah, I mean, they may go as far as logos eventually someday, which would really suck because I know a lot of guys that use the logos on their OBS on their screens. Whether
it's also this content is like vape content in a way is kind of like you're reporting on the news of vape, right? So if you start wiping out loads of these videos, you're kind of killing some history there, right? Like there's some really interesting shit. Go back and watch some of Grimm's videos from 10 years ago, or I Get to 69 or whatever, Phil Basardo. Like there's some really interesting stuff, and they would just be killing history. It would be really bad.
Well, I mean, you probably know better than most of us, but I mean, you probably see people go back and look at some old 3 years, 4 year, 5 year old videos on your channel. Yep. And does that make you think really? I mean, there's something new.
Once in a while, I'll get a comment on an RGA from 2014, and it's like, wow, that's cool that you're watching this, but it's also nostalgic for me because I totally forgot about that RGA.
Yeah. Well, you know why I think that's happened recently. This is just my take on why that might be manifesting itself, is because I see tons of pictures on Facebook from vape groups all the time about some guy who wandered into his local vape shop and the guy pulls a friggin' box out from underneath the table that's full of all these old ass RDAs and RTAs, and they're like, it was clearinghouse, man. I bought 4 of them for $15. Yeah. And then they go post a picture of it on a Facebook group, wanting to know if it's a clone or if it's hijacked, or what is it? I don't even know what it is. It didn't even come in the box. So then when you tell them what it is, I'm sure they probably run off to one of your videos because they're like, oh, okay, I need to learn how to wick it or put a coil in it or something like that.
Also, I think it's good to keep in mind that, and again, I'm just guessing here, but like, obviously these social media companies understand that there's a backlash against censorship right now. I mean, look at what's happening with Twitter and I think that they realize that now is not the time to like double down on more censorship. So while they might go after some vape channels and some other channels for doing some shit here and there, like, I'm just not convinced that they're gonna like ever wipe out like whole segments of content. But I'm knocking on wood right now because I could definitely be wrong.
Yeah.
Well, it's surprising because, I mean, I'm not going to lie. We all like the great prank videos. We love those prank videos, but I'm sure not every one of those videos has gotten that person's okay to be on a video. Yeah. I mean, I know. And some of them have gotten to the point where, it's just like you can read it in the comments, you're lucky that guy didn't kick your ass, or you're lucky that guy didn't punch you in the face. And I'm thinking all this nonsense is going on. They're showing these videos. They're showing these videos of people, which is the new big thing, going into a store and robbing them clean and then just walking out like no big deal. And I'm thinking, why aren't they going after these and the high school fighting videos?
Sure they are. Like that's in the community guidelines as well. Like the pranks and stuff. They used to, if you remember, like 4 or 5 years ago when they didn't have all the guidelines for pranks and like, so those were some of the biggest channels. Like some of the biggest YouTube channels were prank channels back then. But then YouTube had to go and spoil the fun. I mean, I get it. Like you said, they got some of them went far, and there's
way too far. I mean, now they're on TikTok. I mean,
but TikTok's kind of the Wild West because they're newer and there hasn't been as much controversy, and the ownership's not in the U.S. and probably doesn't really give a fuck if they,
they're not. Yeah, they don't own any products.
And so there's definitely a lot more of that kind of stuff on TikTok now.
Yeah, TikTok is getting away with a lot of stuff right now, and I could go. I mean, I know how TikTok works. It's once you start looking at certain things, you're going to constantly see those things. Like Tim is talking about, I see zero vape stuff, but again, I don't look for any vape stuff. So obviously, I'm not going to see any of that in my feed. So,
according to what I understand and how TikTok works, is that depending on the content that you like to watch, then they tend to feed you more of that same kind of content. So if you started out hunting vape stuff, I'm sure it would probably come up a lot more often.
Yeah, if you started searching and stuff, it might come up.
Yeah. Start pulling those hashtags.
But I wanted to make another point to the whole YouTube thing, and I get that, we might kind of laugh it off a little bit just because the strikes happen and the channels disappear, and then we have the 11th hour panic sessions where we're all on Twitter screaming at YouTube to reinstate Dash vapes, and like the menagerie of things that we do. But I kind of feel like when this happens, especially when it's so sweeping, right? Because a week or two ago, it felt like it was everybody. It was you, Matt. Now DJ LSB. It was Mark. Multiple people kind of got hit simultaneously. And I think that not only does it send sort of a shockwave to the reviewers, because you guys are basically thinking, "Oh shit, I just lost all my content and my ability to communicate. Have to rethink the wheel." But I feel like it might also help to reinvigorate the whole idea of advocacy, and I say that just because we see things taken away from us constantly all the time, like a flavor ban in this town or a potential tax in this particular town, and we fight and we fight and we call hotlines and we get on CASAA's website and we do the calls to action. But when you see something like that happen on YouTube, it's kind of a reminder. It's like, there's another avenue where they're trying to take something away from us, and it should make people, I think, a little angry that we should be more vigilant, because this might not be a false alarm. It could really be the beginning of something else.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, you just don't know. And I joke about it because that's how I deal with things and stress and stuff, but it stresses me out when it happens, because you just, it's just one more thing. And like, then the YouTube stuff goes away. You got everything fixed. By the time you finally forget about it, and that's not one of your stresses, then that pops up again. And then you're fucking staying up at night, can't fall asleep because you're worried about your channel going under. And usually they give you the strikes in the middle of the night too, to add insult to injury. So like you're up at 1 o'clock at night, just checking your email, thinking the apocalypse could happen to your channel. So yeah. And I get what you're saying, where it does invigorate people and like everybody kind of bands together. And that's what's great about, the vaping community, is that when there is something, a certain cause to fight, everybody steps up and does their part. Well, not everybody, but people are close.
Yeah. And that's kind of like what the angle I was sort of taking, because I feel like many times and because this show, we talk about a lot of different things. Advocacy seems to dominate the conversation the majority of the time, just because of the position that we're in and why we do the show. Yeah. It's there for a reason. It's to keep that spirit alive, to keep reminding people that, they need to continue to fight. But my point is that, sometimes it feels like the enthusiasm for advocacy falls away. Yeah. So, people are less interested. They're like, they're just going to take it anyway. They don't give a rat's ass. We could sign all the petitions in the world and it means nothing. And I'm saying sometimes I feel like you need that something to happen to kind of kick you in the ass again, and to make you realize that, hey, we could lose a lot more than we can imagine. But a lot of people want to wish the problem away. They're just like, if I just ignore it, they'll leave us alone and everything will be fine.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, the $1 million question, Matt. Why is Rip not getting hit?
I don't know. Maybe he might be.
You think he's just keeping it?
I know he gets.
I don't see him being the kind of guy that keeps it quiet.
I know he gets demonetized and age restricted and stuff. I don't know. Rip's not very vocal about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, at least not anymore. But
we threw out the idea, maybe the numbers, his numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to say because on one hand, there have been times where I felt like YouTube has gone after the smaller channels harder than the bigger channels. But then, like, something happens to a bigger channel, for example, in cannabis, they wiped out the biggest cannabis channel, and they finally gave him his channel back. But like, I forget what that guy's name is now. Something 420. Yeah, it's
okay. Those numbers are involved in the title somewhere.
Yeah. So it's tough to say. Like on one hand, you would think like if they want to save anybody, they'd probably want to save their bigger creators just because they have the bigger voice. They can tell more people, hey, YouTube is fucking me, right?
Yeah.
But on the other hand, like I've seen them go after bigger creators too. So I don't know.
Yeah, I was just kind of trying to guess. I mean, we were talking about keeping the same old format when doing a review, and he's one of those guys that's done it the same way since day one. He hasn't changed the way he does his unbox. He hasn't changed anything at all. It's the same format from beginning to end, where I think some of the other guys have taken it the next level, the next step, and showing, the manuals a little bit better and doing different things with flashing the emails up there, still doing giveaways, but calling it different things, stuff like that, where Rip just sticks to, he doesn't even do an unboxing. Rip just goes product, close-ups, build, vape, end. And I think you're the same way. I think you're, product.
I do an unboxing somewhat where I show everything in the box and stuff, but I mean, I don't go like super in depth.
Right. You've done it the same way, because I go back for forever with your videos, and you've always done it the same way. Here's, sometimes I see a box, sometimes I don't, but it's always product, build, vape, opinion, and video, where some guys have tried to make it into, a 15 to 20 minute mini movie. I think that's one of the things we talked about last week, is just some of the nonsense that was going on with channels 4 or 5 years back, and how things got out of hand, where it's blowing shit up, breaking stuff, doing four-wheeling in videos, and all this other nonsense that's going on in shops, playing jokes on each other. Instead, it's like there's 8 minutes of nonsense, and then all of a sudden there's 3 minutes of a product review, and then the end of the video.
Yeah, I think. Well, like for me personally, if I was the type of reviewer that only did one video a week,
Yeah.
I would do the. I would definitely put more into the editing and filming and try to make them, like more like the glossy tech videos.
Yeah.
But when you have, this could change, but it hasn't yet. I mean, when there's so much vape stuff coming out constantly, you have to balance like the quality of content and, the time it takes to get a review done. So like, but as far as like other channels trying different things, yeah, I mean, I've seen people do that in the past, and like, if it like keeps you,
it's gotten better,
different to like make you because you were bored or whatever. So I basically make content like I would want to watch it if I wanted to see that particular product, but not everybody's the same as me.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. That was the thing. We kind of, it just gotten to the point. Like I said, they were mini movies. They were just mini movies with the 4-minute review of, the Geek Vape, whatever, and it was just like, oh yeah, I think I just watched a review.
Yeah, but maybe some of that has to do with the one reviewer trying to one up everybody else, so people will watch him. You can't, if you want people to look your way, sometimes you got to be a little cutting edge. If you're trying to steal a viewer or something like that. So I mean, then maybe that had something to do with it.
Well, yeah. I was glad that the main guys, yourself, and Rip, and Phil, and mostly Mike is stuck with the same format of his videos since I can go all the way back to the day in his kitchen in his first video. It's all the same, it's here's the product, here's what it looks like, this is what comes in it, here's the build, here I'm vaping it, my opinion, end of video, 8 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I think like with vape stuff, it kind of contributes to that type of like more of an up close, hands-on type of thing. And then there's other types of product reviews where like they do better with like some B-roll and a voiceover and stuff like that. I think it's product dependent. But with a vape products, like I think people need to see your hands on it and you doing the different things to it, as opposed to me just doing some B-roll of that product and explaining what they need to do.
Yeah. So that's the video that I would look for. I want to see the innards and the guts and not so much like maybe Daniel does, where he'll tear it apart, and show you every screw that attaches the damn thing together. That's great, and that's for some of those people. But I'm saying I would much rather watch a review video that actually kind of shows me how the tank comes apart and goes back together, and how the deck can be shifted or changed, or the glass changed out, or, whatever. You look for those finer details, because those are maybe things that you didn't even think to look for if you just went out and bought it,
Yeah. I like the teardown. I like the way Phil does that and Daniel, because it gives you a good look at that 510. That's the first thing I'm looking at, is that 510 and that shitty soldering that goes on that 510. Yeah. That'll make me change my mind every time, because I'm done with that nonsense.
I will say that lately, and this hasn't happened for years, but lately I have gotten the itch, because I've gotten more into like camera equipment again, and I upgraded some stuff. And lately I've gotten the itch to start making content on our other channel again, but it's probably going to be a little different. But I think I have multiple ideas bouncing around in my head, but I just haven't figured out the vision. Problem is with the YouTube channel, if you go on there and you do everything. So like, let's say one day I'm reviewing a lawnmower and it's a cool review and maybe it's even a little funny, but then the next day I'm reviewing a freaking laptop. Like, those channels don't do well. You kind of got to pick your lane and stay in it. A lot of people have said, well, why don't you just do stuff? You have so many subscribers. Why don't you do some tech reviews on your vape channel? It just never works that way. People have tried it. I even tried it. I put some vlogs on my vape channel years ago, and you really want to have like, when it's a channel about a certain niche subject, you want to stick to that subject. Like, at most, maybe at some point, like if the amount of vape products coming out slowed down, maybe I'm not saying for sure, I would like review.
You heard it here first.
I would maybe review like some cannabis vaporizers or something like that. But I know I will get shit for that. I know I will.
Yeah. See, that's what you run into, though. You run into that because you have such a huge, you have a huge following, but you also have a huge following for vaping, and so people want to. I mean, that's, I think, the trouble. let's just say not trouble, because he's been very successful making that transition from vaping to cannabis, but indoor smokers. But he's always had that line. He was always just right there at that line to where he could, step over and go into both things and still be successful as a channel.
Yeah, well,
and just so you know, Luke, when I was talking about making content for my other channel,
on the
vape channel, I'm not going to put tech reviews or anything like that on it. I'm saying if down the road we see way less hardware coming out,
I see his comment. Yeah.
Then
Sophie.
then maybe I will branch out to cannabis products and stuff. But I know I'm just going to get a lot of backlash if I do.
Yeah. Oh, you could always just do a poll on your page, Tim, Matt, and just pull from your fans and just see what they're interested in, and maybe adapt that into your next channel.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, where you can kind of figure. Well, before we, let's talk a little bit about CASAA and your role there at CASAA. What are you doing over there, Matt?
I'm on the board of CASAA. I've been on the board for a few years now, and I have been the secretary for like 6 months, and now I'm the secretary and treasurer. Because so I'm just embezzling. No, I'm kidding. I still don't touch the funds. I just honestly, it sounds
touch the funds.
I go get things notarized. I get like documents notarized and shit like that. But as far as like the actual advocacy work we do, we put a big focus on the website over the last couple of years. The website's been completely revamped, and I think it's awesome now. If you remember the old CASAA website, I mean, compared to the new one, it's night and day. And we're starting to do more Twitter Spaces, so definitely follow the CASAA Twitter if you're interested in that. There's also a CASAA podcast on the weekends. And then you can listen to that from CASAA's SoundCloud. But as far as like the work that CASAA does, I think a lot of people, not you guys, but a lot of people in general have gotten this confused over the years. It's a consumer advocacy organization. It's not the same as VTA or AVM, which are trade organizations. We are more geared towards the consumer. So we fight for, all products. And, CASAA is basically there to just fight everything. And then if the trade orgs want to make their own deals, that's up to them. But we're going to basically try to fight any type of ban on any type of tobacco harm reduction product, whether that be any kind of vape, snus, so have you, even something else new comes out that was a proven effective way to reduce risk. So, one of the biggest things CASAA has done, and the money they've put into, has been their system for calls to action. We have a email list and a membership list of over 250,000 members, and we have them categorized by states. And so we've put a lot of money into our software and to the stuff to be able to put out those calls to action, have them directed, have them relayed to the senators and representatives in a good way, not just look like a crazy wall of text. It's more complicated than it sounds like it would, just trying to do all that stuff with the computer tech that's out there today. So we do that. Then we all, a lot of it's just awareness. When there were more vape shows, CASAA would be there. We would be handing out literature and stuff like that. And we also are making new literature to give out at some treatment centers. So, if you notice, a lot of people that have addiction problems are smokers, and one of the ways to really help them out is to try to go to the treatment centers, give them free product to give out, give them literature to give out, so on and so forth.
Yeah, we've had, who did we have on from CASAA?
Alex.
We had Alex and I think is he still with CASAA? We had Culley.
Oh,
he was with CASAA, yeah.
Yeah, he's AVA. He started he was originally with CASAA up until I think like 2016. Still a friend of CASAA's, obviously, but yeah, he started American Vaping Association.
That's my next question for you. How have you guys? I've noticed that you guys are all working together again. Everybody's kind of helping each other. Everybody's kind of scratching each other's backs again, and not kind of fighting each other over different causes. And I get it. Manufacturers want something a little bit different than the vape shop does, and the vape shop wants something a little bit different than the website does. Do you feel in the last few years that you guys are more coming together as groups and working together more?
I think there's still some drama behind the scenes. And, I mean, CASAA's usually not really been involved in that, but there's, kind of, because it's usually more like the trade org stuff. But I think that the vape industry as a whole has gotten a lot better at like keeping that shit, behind the scenes. It's still, there's still disagreements. There's still some drama here and there. Like not everybody thinks the same, which is totally normal. But there's way less airing of dirty laundry compared to how it used to be. And I think like, when the shit hit the fan with eValley in 2019, and then everything that's happened since then, it's just people have realized there's this, that's just small potatoes. Like posting publicly about your problems with somebody else is probably not worth it. So it's like I said, it still happens. There's still some drama here and there, but I do think it's gotten better. And when there is drama, it doesn't like creep up into Facebook groups.
Into groups. And Curtis, he did. I remember. I think Matt is one of the people that said he does like pineapple on pizza. And I think I gave you the.
Now let me say, when I eat pizza, I don't want just one type of pizza. Like I don't want just ham and pineapple or pepperoni and pineapple or whatever. That's kind of like almost my dessert pizza, right? So I'll start out with like the more supremes or the stuff that's got the pepperoni and the sausage and the spicy shit. And then when I want like something that's a little bit lighter with some sweetness, that's when I go to the pineapple.
Pineapple and ham. Canadian bacon. I'm sorry, not ham. Canadian bacon. Tim, you got a question for Matt?
I do. I do.
I know you do.
I thought long and hard about this one.
I saw the wheel spinning.
Well, knowing that Matt actually takes a very proactive position in advocacy and probably sees things a little bit quicker than we do, you've been able to formulate your own opinions about certain things and where you think this all ends up at some point in time, right? Because right now it just seems like all our backs are against the wall constantly. But then you couple that with the idea that you do vape reviews and you're involved in the vaping community that way. Well, really, kind of where you got started, because advocacy really wasn't a thing that was necessary, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago as much as it is today. So my question is this: so because you still do both. Is there any kind of a melancholy feeling, or do you ever have, any kind of a melancholy kind of attitude when you sit down to do a vape review and you're like, okay, I'm reviewing this thing that, we potentially might not be able to even handle in the next 2 to 3 years if they, have their way with us, so to speak. Or are you just unfettered by that and you're like, nah, I'm not going to think negatively. I'm just going to continue to review forward. And if we lose the American market, there's still an international market and they watch me too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've definitely been melancholy a lot of times. I mean, it's even happening now. There's times where there's products that I review where like they're not being sold in the States. And so I'm not really worried about myself so much because, I have a global audience. Only 15% of my views come from the U.S. Like, there's other Philippines. I usually get more views from the Philippines than the U.S. even. And, but it is sad, like the fact that like, God, I really like this product. I want to try to buy coils. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to find coils for this product. You know what I'm saying? Like just you, because I'm kind of insulated sometimes. And companies send me products to review and stuff, and then I all of a sudden realize, I want to buy this juice, and then I'm like, oh yeah, you start remembering like, yeah, there's way more limitations now, and so it is sad, and I wish I could say like I think it's going to get better. I have no idea what's going to happen. A lot is riding on a few different court cases right now, and obviously, what's FDA going to do with the rest of the pending PMTAs. But there's also a side of me where I've been through this panic so much, like ever since 2016, really.
Yeah.
I mean, even before then we knew, but then when 2016 happened and like we weren't able to, change any of the language in the deeming reg, and we knew like, okay, this is going to be law, or, going to be a regulation. Like, it's been like fight or flight ever since then,
Yeah.
And so I still get nervous and I still get worked up and stuff, but I'm also like a little more used to it than I was, just because it's been so chaotic the last, 6 years.
And you have hope. I mean, you still have hope that things are going to work out. And it may not be, we may not get everything, but there's still hope that there'll still be some flavors. There'll still be some stuff out there for us to choose from. But my question goes to the hardware side. Why has it been so quiet with FDA and hardware? It's like they just kind of put it to the back burner, and are they waiting to maybe, I mean, I'm sure they can't handle what they got going on right now with PMTAs with e-liquid, but are they paying attention to hardware at all? Or are they waiting for that for the next?
Back a few years ago, there was a few hardware manufacturers that got warning letters, and some of them like even told the FDA, I don't believe this is a covered tobacco product. And like the FDA was just like, okay.
Okay, sorry.
I think that the FDA is very underpowered as far as their, how many people they have working on this. I don't think that they have. I got a freaking warning letter back, I think it was 2018, because because of an RDA that I had designed. It wasn't even my RDA, right? So the letter should have gone to the manufacturer, not me.
Yeah.
But it went to an RDA, but I was like, okay, I'm going to try to fight it anyway, even though I don't, this doesn't apply to me. They're not going to do shit to me, but I'm still going to like try to get him on the phone and talk to him about it.
Right.
So I ended up in this conference call with a couple FDA lawyers, and these guys, I knew the fucking regulations better than they did. Like, I just told him, I was like, well, it's an RDA. It doesn't even have a coil in it. Now I know full and well this should be it should be considered a a component, and it is covered under FDA's guidelines. But I just said, hey, it shouldn't be a covered tobacco product. It's not a finished tobacco product. It can be used for anything. And they're like, okay, we'll just leave it at that. Like,
they were stupid.
So, I mean, I think that their hands are full enough with obviously all the pod systems from Big Tobacco,
right.
Obviously all the e-liquids from the independent manufacturers. And, I don't know if they're ever going to go hard after hardware, especially if like people start putting stickers on it where it says like not to be used with nicotine or tobacco, Like, I don't know. We'll see. But it seems like that's really low on their priority list.
Yeah. I mean, I got a letter, and I was a photographer, and I got it. Yeah. And I was like, I woke up to like a shit ton of emails, over 100 emails. Like, you're on their FDA's list. I'm saying, for what? And I went and checked, and there was my name, John Truncali, IG Smile King 40. And I was on their list, and I was like, I went straight to my lawyer, and my lawyer looked at it, goes, are you a manufacturer? I go, no, I'm a photographer. And I go, I always put, that label thing on my pictures, what the company does on their end when they take my photo, what they do on their end, that's on them. It shouldn't be on me. I took the picture. I didn't make the oil. I didn't make the juice, and I was on that list. I was all freaking out. I was like, "Am I getting sued? Am I going to get shit?"
Yeah, I mean, they
had no clue.
I always jump back and forth between like a government agency being evil or a government agency just being really fucking stupid, and they're having so much bureaucracy. And I usually think it leans more towards the stupid side of things. It's not to say there aren't smart people at the FDA that know exactly what they're doing, and some of the things that they've said, they changed some of the requirements for PMTAs right before it kicked in, and it seems pretty clear that they're anti-flavor right now. So there's obviously some people that have an agenda there, and like that's what they're trying to get played out. But as a whole, if you look at like a whole agency or organization, like they're just very fucking disorganized, and usually they don't even know half of the regulations that they're supposed to be regulating.
Yeah.
With, you know.
Well, you think too. I mean, you got to think they've got a lot of pressure from Congress. You know, which a portion of their income comes from Congress. They decide on their budget, and of course they have pharmaceuticals that are paying top dollars to have things passed or looked at. So I'm sure they've got a lot of pressure on them, and I think they were not prepared. I mean, when the PMTA started going through. And to see an ad from the FDA asking for people to hire people to go through these I was like, dude, were you not prepared for this? You knew that people were gonna. There was companies that weren't gonna just go, well, we had a good run, we're out. I mean, yeah, there were a few that did that, but a majority of the companies said, hey, we're ready. We'll get this done.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think the FDA has really dealt with anything exactly like this before, and I think a lot of people in government thought that this would be no big deal, just like when they banned flavors in cigarettes. Yeah. What they didn't take into account is that very few smokers were ever smoking flavored cigarettes. Yeah. And, and it wasn't that big of a deal when all of a sudden they went away on the counter. Yeah. But when you have like 90% of vapors that vape a flavor that's not tobacco, probably even more than that, if because a lot of the tobacco flavors are mixed with other flavors. Yeah, but when you do that, like you're going to continue. There's going to be a continued demand, and that vacuum's going to be filled, whether it be the black market or wherever gray market or wherever else. So the fact if they thought that this was just going to go away easily, like they definitely underestimated the situation.
They did. I mean, when you see a help want ad from the FDA asking for people to come help them go through, those PMTAs, that kind of sent a sign to everybody like, okay, they weren't ready. But then again, like you said, for them to quickly just throw a whole bunch of companies out into the deep blue and say, we're not going to pass you. Something happened to Australian internet.
Well, there's definitely, I mean, the FDA has definitely been politicized more, not just with vaping, but with all the COVID stuff. And they get a lot more heat from legislators than they used to. I mean, they've always gotten some heat, but like they're in the news now, like with the vaccine stuff, the vape stuff, whatever. Yeah. So, I mean, I think I'm not sure they really knew what they were going to do until they did it. I mean, I think they probably went back and forth, on the flavor stuff. When Gottlieb was in there, he seemed like he might be open to some potential flavors and whatnot. And then they changed because youth use went up and it's tough to know what'll ever happen. But I also think like they're doing some of these releases, like they're kind of doing them in proper order. Like they were never going to approve Juul first. I debated this with other people.
Yeah, there wasn't good.
That thought that Juul might be first. They were never going to approve Juul first because that would, the uproar would have been huge. Yeah. Now I think they are going to approve Juul, but obviously they went and approved some others first and denied a whole lot. and now they're kind of waiting for some cover. It would not shock me whatsoever if they approve Juul and then they start coming out with more, potentially they open up a little bit more. I'm not saying they're all of a sudden going to be like the UK, but they might start, acting like vaping is a pretty good tool for smokers after some of those approvals, just to kind of back up their why they approved it, because they're obviously going to get shit from the antis.
I mean, too, you kind of think about it. I mean, there's not very many products that go into the FDA that have competition. It's usually maybe one or two or three pharmacies that have the same pill. So there's not this big, push to, okay, well, we can look at three manufacturers, but then getting hit with, I don't know how many, what was the total number of companies
millions of PMTAs.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they were, because you got Johnson & Johnson maybe fighting with Pfizer over a pill. This pill. They got to look at two pills. Now you've got millions and millions of documents coming from thousands of different companies trying to push a line through. So I don't. I
mean, when an industry is heavily regulated, whether it be tobacco, vaping, oil, but some things like obviously the regulators want as few players as possible. So, cigarettes was fairly easy for them, but like when you got thousands of manufacturers trying to get a product through, it was always clear they were going to try to thin the herd, but I don't think, they're really thinning the herd. So
yeah, I can't think of any other any other industry other than the vitamin industry, because that's a big industry. I mean, there's it seems like every day there's a new company coming out with some sort of fitness medicine.
Well, and if you remember, there was a big war back a few decades ago between vitamins and the FDA, and the FDA just had to throw their hands up because they basically said you can't make health claims, but we're just gonna regulate you as a consumer good. Like as long as you don't make health claims, we'll regulate you as a consumer good. It's got to, obviously you have to follow manufacturing procedures to make sure your product is clean. But like, they just kind of wiped their hands of it and realized they weren't going to be able to rein that industry in.
Oh, that'd be nice. That'd be nice for us.
The problem is there wasn't nearly as much public outrage.
There was.
Didn't hear the arguments about vaping on Twitter.
Kids are out buying vitamin C, man. They're buying vitamin C. Kids in high school are walking around with pockets full of vitamin C and sea salt and fucking...
My kids, they're just chewing these zinc lozenges left and right.
Yeah, exactly.
What's this jinxing? What is this shit? My kid's got it in his pocket, his backpack. He's selling it for $5 a hit. I mean, that'd be hilarious. Paul, now that you're back, you have something you want to say?
I've got lots I want to say.
Let me introduce you properly. Hold on. Go ahead, Paul.
The question I've got from Matt, though, if everything goes pear-shaped, would you ever start reviewing whiskey? And have you tried any good whiskeys recently?
He's in Montana. You bet he's tasted good whiskey.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely, the last few years, because my original whiskey love was with Scotch. And then the last few years... And I used to always bag on bourbon. I'll be completely honest with you. I used to shit on bourbon somewhat, and then I got a taste for it, and I started trying more bourbons, and that's kind of bourbons and a few ryes have been my thing. Honestly, like I have some expensive stuff that's not worth the price, but it's really good. Like I have a Stag 2020. I have a lot of Stag Juniors. Those aren't as expensive, a couple $100 a bottle, but I really like the Stag Junior better. That's one of my favorite whiskeys, especially the I think is the fall of 2020 version. But one of them that I drink a lot when I'm drinking, which hasn't been lately as much, is the oh my god, the Wild Turkey.
I know which one you're talking about.
What's the reserve one called? I have it out there. Somebody's gonna help me. They make
one of the rare breeds and
rare breed. Yeah, rare breed. So the rare breed barrel proof, the rye rare breed barrel proof is freaking delicious.
That's 25 years old, right? I think that's the 25.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And their bourbon rare breed is really good too, and it's only like $40, and it's better than a lot of 100+ bottles out there.
Bourbon's good to cook with. That's about it. I'm just kidding. Take it easy. Take it easy.
I have whiskey overflow.
I'm just kidding. I kid. Oh man.
I ran out of space in my whiskey bar out there, so I have to have some stuff in my office.
We got stuff close by.
Bottles.
We were laughing about that a long time ago when you said, I was talking to you and Daniel one day, and you said, but I've got this bar here, but I'm running out of space. Where do I put it? And I said, well, just fill your office up as well. Now, obviously, it's happening.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is I got like, I go in and out, and like lately I've just
Mad Dog 2020, Nick. What?
I've been smoking more pot lately,
Oh,
or
God.
vaping more pot lately, and so I just haven't been drinking as much. And
Yeah,
so
drink Mad Dog 2020, then do a review. See how it comes out.
It's too sweet.
It's
Way
too-
too sweet.
All right, I got a question for you because I think it's kind of cool because you have. This is the first time. Maybe I haven't really been paying attention to your videos, but in the beginning, there was always this one painting, and it's been in your videos forever, and now I don't see it. Do you know which one? It was always behind you. It's always
still in my
behind you.
videos. It's still in my video. It's not in this, because
It's
I'm
not,
at my
this is a
desk
different.
right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but like in my regular reviews, it's still there.
It's still there. Yeah.
Yeah, look over my left shoulder.
Okay. All right, I'll check it out because that's something I've noticed. Like I've gone through, some of your back videos. I've been watching you for a long time. I think you were one of the first that I started watching after Rip, and it was Rip, and then Grim came later. I think you came before Grim because you did the review on the IPv4.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I got into a fight with you over that video in the comments. Yeah,
was it
because you were
over?
trying to get it to go on fire, and I go, "Well, I don't do all that stuff. I'm just vaping it." Something about the plug.
Yeah, it was because it was because
Remember that?
other people were complaining about the issue.
Yeah, I
or
know.
something, and I think I think it was like I put liquid. I didn't try to light it on fire. I think I put a bunch of liquid all over it because they were saying that basically it was like one of the first mods
It's
where
still here, baby.
yeah, it's one of the first mods where I think they waterproofed the chip inside.
Yeah.
Now that's pretty standard. We see that with like a lot of mods, but
Yeah,
that was one of
yeah.
the first. And so I just poured e-liquid on it.
I think my comment was,
Oh, really?
"Well,
You know
Matt,
what, like-
I'm not going to pour that much liquid in that hole."
But I really should have dumped it in water because the liquid's not going to freaking short out the board anyway.
Yeah,
But
it
that was I was younger then.
Yeah, it was. No, your videos have always been great, and your audio has always gotten better, and your videos always gotten better. So I'm going to ask you, what camera you been using this whole time? What's Matt's equipment setup?
For reviews, I just recently moved. I was using a Panasonic GH5 for years,
GS5.
and then I moved up to full frame. I got the Panasonic S5. I really like Panasonic cameras. I'm used to their menus.
Yeah.
I like Canon as well, but they're a little overpriced. And Panasonic's just kind of like one of those I don't know why people sleep on them. They always go for Sony. Like Sony camera image is great, and they have a lot of features.
It's sharp.
Like, their menus are a pain in the ass, and usually their build quality is not as good.
Yeah. Their video is sharp, but it's almost to the point where it sometimes looks cartoonish. Do you know what I'm talking about? That look, it looks fake sometimes, and it's just ultra sharp.
There's also like a skin smoothing setting in there too, which people leave on, which they shouldn't. Like it looks really bad. Right now on this, I'm using a Sony A6500 just into an Elgato Cam Link into
Elgato.
my computer. But then on what else do you want to know? Do you want to know lighting and all that stuff?
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
or-
Everyone always wants to know what the reviewers' setups are.
With the camera, I'm using for the reviews Panasonic S5 with the 24 to 105 zoom lens. I picked that lens because I can get really nice and macro for those close-up shots, and I don't like to have to switch lenses for the really close-up shots. For the microphone, I recently got a new mic. It's the Rode NTG5, which I like. Before that, I was using this is a shotgun microphone, a short shotgun microphone. Before that, I was using an Audix, which was a condenser microphone that's made for booming indoors. And then for lighting, I have a Aperture 120D through a light dome as my key light. Then I have some more, like a bunch of lights throughout. Most of them are Aperture. I like that brand. For the price, they're good. And then here I just got this mic. This is a Shure MV7, which is like a XLR and a USB mic.
Yeah.
And then I already told you my camera I'm using.
I like Shure mics. They sound good. I bought the Rode pod mic, and I had to put a booster on it. So I was like, okay, $100 for that mod or that microphone, and then another 100 for a booster. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. I should have just moved up and got a different mic. But yeah, no, you should actually have that listed. You should. I think a lot of people are like really in it, especially when they're jumping into reviews. They like to know what you guys are using.
Yeah.
And see
Yeah,
how.
I should. I like it when other YouTubers do that as well. And I was also thinking like when I do a start up the second channel, I may do like a office tour video.
Oh yeah,
on
you gotta
that, showing all the equipment I use and stuff like that.
Yeah. Do your I don't know if you watch the Peter McNeely channel. Do you watch his channel at all on YouTube?
Peter McKinnon or Peter McNeely?
McKinnon, I think it's McKinnon.
McKinnon, yeah.
Yeah, the Canon guy.
Yeah, I've watched him periodically.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not going to say Nikon. We're not going to say Nikon because Paul over there's a Nikon guy, and you know. Timmy, you got a question for?
Yeah, I don't have any questions about cameras or key legging or anything like that. I'm gonna take it back.
Take it
vaping again. No,
hold on.
So
the Queen's wave.
Yeah. So my question is probably one you've been asked a billion times, but we'll do it on this show anyway. But a lot of us here have not been recipients of the ability to review products quite at the scale that you have. Most of us buy them and we review them in our own special little way. If you could go across the breadth of everything you reviewed up from then until now, what would you say, hands down, with everything you've ever held in your hand? Yeah, and you can be a little consolidated. I'm not looking for every separate component, but what would you say is your favorite mod, Addy, and your favorite juice?
Well, keep in mind that it all depends on time, right? So, like, obviously, we know the vape products have gotten better incrementally over the years. But the product that always sticks out in my head as, like, just, I love and it'll always be near and dear to me is the K-Funs and, like, the K-Fun Mini and, all of those. So I would say, I still say that's my favorite Addy. It was, like, the first one where I was happy with it. I had tried a lot of cheaper ones, and then I finally broke down and bought a K-Fun and finally learned how to build it and watched hours and hours of video, and getting the wicking right was tough at first. And just like I remember the first vape off of that thing, it was like that's what flavor tastes like. And so that'll always be near and dear to me, even though I'm sure there's probably better Addies and there's probably something that has better flavor or whatever, but I got to go K-Fun.
Okay.
As far as mods go, it gets a little tougher. Like I used to be pretty into high-end mods, and like I just always loved the zeros back then, if you remember those.
Yeah.
And so I that's the first one that really jumps into my mind, and so I would have to say a zero. As far as e-liquid,
you better say your own brand. You better say your own brand.
Yeah, of course. But like if you're if I'm thinking like all my history of vaping, like what just had me so I've tried so many
like that. That's
now,
what
like,
I mean.
Yeah.
I'm constantly using my own brand. That's what I always use in pod systems. But I didn't show a website.
Yeah, I know.
But as far as like, just something that sticks out, there was a flavor, but I can't remember the name of it. And it had the octopus on the label, and it tasted like Red Vine's licorice or whatever. And I loved that shit for like 6 months, and then I hated it afterwards.
That's the cereal vapes.
I would like to try it again, but I forget what it was freaking called.
Yeah, that's the cereal vapes. 6 months is just, oh my God, this stuff is great. And then you just wake up one morning and it's...
Somebody earlier had asked about best AIO and
it was Luke.
coil length.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody's had different experiences with different products, but I have, as far as coil length goes, I have had the best luck with UL stuff. So, like my Caliburn coils last me a good long time with the liquids I use, and for AIOs, the Aglo series was really, really underappreciated, and it should have been more popular than it is. Not because why it wasn't, because it doesn't look that cool.
It doesn't look cool. I
don't have one on my desk. It doesn't look that cool. It's kind of plain and basic, but the coils in that thing for the Aglos are freaking fantastic, and they will last you a long, long time, as long as you're not using like the super dark, over sweetened liquids. But That's probably one of my favorite pod mod series is the Aglos.
Yeah, going back to you talking about the K-Fun, is like that first time as well for me. It's one of my favorite RTAs, and the first thing I noticed, and I'm sure you did, is when you started breaking it apart and feeling the difference of the material, the weight of the the and
manufacturing, the threads,
and that was like, okay, I get it now. I get it now.
You could definitely, especially back then. Like nowadays, Chinese manufacturing is so much better than it was. But like back in like 2014, like what were those IGO W stuff like that?
I had an L. I had an IGO L.
Yeah, you look at the manufacturing on those, and then you get a K-Fun, and the threads are just butter smooth, and the finish. It even feels good to touch the thing because the finish on the stainless is done so well. Like,
well, it was hard for us to justify the $115 to $125 to $135 that we paid for it. And you're like,
that tank is really what got me hooked more. I was already really into vaping, but then I was done after that. And then, that's when I started making YouTube videos and stuff. It's the K-Fun's fault.
That was the first RTA where it kind of like took off, because I remember my journey being a little bit like the basic stuff. You had your Kanger, Pro Tank 2 and your little Ego Twist. And then I would flip on videos on YouTube and I'd see people like making their coils and stuff and be like, man, I'm never going to do that shit. That's just way too much work. Yeah, exactly. And then a week later you bought wire and a K-Fun and you're making a coil. For me, K-Fun, I enjoyed them, but I always had leaking problems with them. I always seemed to have leaking right around that grub screw that was your airflow control. It would always leak out of there, and I never could solve it. And so I think it kind of found its way became a shelf queen for me. So
yeah, I mean, they were tough. And like back in the day, people used to like wick them with the silica wick.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember when I first started using it, I was using silica wick. And you had to really get that wick perfect to not get dry hits, but obviously not leak. Well, yeah. But then when everybody started using cotton in them, it was a game changer. But yeah, once the liquid level gets low on an RTA like that, they definitely tend to get more gurgly, and if you're out in the heat, they get more gurgly.
Yeah, I'm just glad we have advanced to bigger RTAs, because my eyesight today trying to build on a 22 millimeter deck back then was okay. I got by, but if I were to do it today, I'd be like, hell no. Because I started my introduction to the RTAs was the Billow, and I love that. I still have all those, every version of it.
Those were good.
Yeah, and now the original one I still have, but I don't have the glass for it anymore. I broke the last piece of glass for it. I don't know if I could get any glass for it or not. Yeah. But I started there, and I moved into that K-Fun, and for me that was the thing. When I got it, I was like, I opened the box and I was like, okay, I just spent with taxes and shipping, it was close to $150. I think it was right around there. Mm-hmm. So I'm opening this thing up, and as soon as I started touching the parts, I was like, "Oh wow, wait a minute here! All right." And you grab that Chinese RTA, and you're like, "All right, I can see the difference here."
And then like the next year, 2015. Well, I mean, the high end scene was going on before then, but then I remember like 2015 seemed like the peak of the high end scene, and that's when you had people like spending $500 to $1,000 on an Amati, or remember the Tobe was really popular and hard to get for a while, and it got nuts, and then that $150 K-Fun didn't seem too expensive anymore.
No, yeah. I mean, there was some stuff that came out, a lot of stuff that Todd was great for teaching us all the new hot stuff that was coming out of Europe. Yep. So if you needed to know what was hot and it was expensive, go to Todd's page, and that page got me a lot. And the problem was, you remember, we talk about this on our show, but back then you had to join a Facebook group page. You had to pay $5 to get into this stupid poll, then go through a friggin' raffle thing to get your name picked, just so you could get the opportunity to buy something. Yeah.
That was like the heyday for. Imagine being a modder back then, because they were treated like gods for a couple of years.
Yeah,
they got a taste of feeling like a god I remember people would suck up to them so bad, and they'd throw other people under the bus. It got so ridiculous and gross. Some of those high end groups, like the drama involved, like in Hemo and stuff like that, was just
Oh yeah.
If you look back on it now, I mean, even at the time, I remember thinking like, "This is so stupid. It's just vaping." But at the same time, I do kind of want that stab wood mod.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
there was a
and now
lot
you
going
look back
on.
on it, it's just like that whole scene got so dumb.
Yeah, and then as the stabwood stuff started to dwindle down, all of a sudden everybody got right back into mech mods, and then mech mods just went off the charts, and all of a sudden there was guys paying $500-$600 for a mech mod, and I'm like,
and then Squonks again, came back again. Iron Squonk.
Well, then there was the inevitable argument between buying authentic versus buying clones. Most of us didn't have that kind of coin to go spend $350.
That was our biggest because that was when I started my channel. Because I started my channel February of 2014, the clone drama was the biggest drama in vaping.
Yeah, right about there.
And I had like a really serious decision to decide, like, am I going to review clones? I did for a while. My reasoning was this: no one can get the fucking original,
right?
Like the like they're not going to be able to get the original for months. They might not even, even if they want to spend full price, they're not going to be able to get it. Yeah. And at the time, there were no good, authentic, cheap rebuildable atomizers.
Right.
That changed. Really, I think it changed with Tofa was really one of the first. Yeah. When they started coming out with original designs, and then other companies started doing it, then clones made less sense. Like you don't, if you can't afford the high end K-Fun, then go buy this $30 whatever tank that's 95% as good.
Right.
And just go with that. And so, I stopped reviewing clones after, I would say, the first year of my channel. But at the time, like, I understood both arguments. You don't want to take money away from the modders, but at the same time, like, they were only making so many products anyway.
Right.
And, but I preferred the clones that at least like didn't put the logos on there and shit.
Right. That was the one-to-ones. The one-to-ones.
Yeah, the one-to-ones. It's just like there wasn't, that logo doesn't make it vape better, and they can then just potentially sell it to somebody else as an original, if it's a good clone.
Oh, it got bad. Remember, Matt? I mean, it was one-to-one, even to the box, even to the lettering and on the box, the font, everything. I was like, dude, you guys are ballsy in China, man. You guys are really ballsy. Let's answer Tom's question real fast before we jump into the news here. Matt, what's your go-to food? Oh, what happened? We get Paul back?
Yeah, no, he's got internet issues.
What are you tossing on the grill, Matt? Big old buffalo steak?
Beef is my favorite, but lately I've been eating a little less beef. I went, I don't know if other people have a dentist that does this, but like my dentist is pretty high tech. He like scans your whole head and stuff, your whole head and neck and throat and whatever. And he pointed out that I had, calcium deposits in my arteries.
Thanks, dentist.
I think, he's like, it's pretty regular for someone your age, to start getting this. But, you're getting some, and you might want to, show this image to your doctor and care about your diet. So, like, I've been eating a little less red meat, even though I know there's some debate on whether or not red meat causes that. But I've been eating I feel... While I love steak, I honestly feel better when I eat chicken or fish. Like I've done keto for multiple years. I've lost a lot of weight on it. I did strict keto. I did strict intermittent fasting, but I feel better doing more of, and everyone's different. Not everyone's this way. My body feels better when I do more of like a Mediterranean type of diet with veggies, chicken, fish, stuff like that.
Yeah, when I saw you in LA a few years back at that convention, you had lost a lot of weight. I didn't recognize you. The only thing that I recognized was your height. And I was like, oh yeah, there's Matt. But you had lost a lot. What was that? Was it 3 years ago or 4 years ago? God, it's been it's got to be 4 years ago.
2018.
Yeah, the LA one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had lost a lot of weight.
Yeah, and I've gained like 30 pounds since then.
Since then, of course.
Of COVID. Well, I gained about 30, and I've lost about 12 pounds of that.
There you go. Well, we're going to jump in real quick and do the news. And let me find Tim's bumper. There it is.
I feel like I should have some kind of a stretch moment, where you crack your knuckles before you do your little bit or whatever. But anyway, welcome to the news section, everybody. We're going to tap some papers. We're going to talk about some stuff. Kind of scoured the internet for a little while. I guess I need a new printer or a new print head because I don't know. We'll see if I can get through reading half this stuff. But we're going to talk about a couple things. I try to consistently look for positive information as best as I can. It's tough anymore, so you kind of have to look deep and try to find things that are well worth talking about. Most of the things that I talk about, I'm pretty sure everybody's probably already heard about. But if I bring you some new information, then that's a win-win for getting information out to the folks. Let me share the screen. Because last week apparently I forgot to do that.
Yeah, you did. I noticed that.
No one even told me. Yeah. No one even told me. All right, so we're going to talk about, and we've talked about this before, but I always try to introduce some studies that are done to try to refute some of the information or some of the propaganda that's put out into, on Facebook, on Twitter, things of that nature. And so one of the things that came up pretty early on, at least what I remember, especially during the pandemic, was how people that were smokers were going to be far more susceptible to being prone to catching COVID, and then in turn, your severity of your case could potentially cause you to, suffer heavier consequences or even death in those cases. And then I even remember, maybe you guys remember this, when the vaccines first started coming out and everyone was getting in line. A lot of us thought, okay, well, it's going to be the the people with immune system issues or health issues that need to be protected, and the older community, the aging community, because apparently COVID specifically went after the older, the aging people on this planet. But anyway, I remember smokers being able to jump in line in some states to get their COVID shots. They prioritized smokers because they thought people that smoked were going to be more prone to catching COVID in lieu of someone who didn't smoke or was a never smoker or had recently quit or something like that. So this article basically addresses that. So there was a study that was done by the Health Research in Aurora, Colorado, and there's a lot of words here, folks, so bear with me. The Department of Health Systems Science at the Kaiser Permanente Bernard J. Tyson School of Medicine in Pasadena. Good Lord. That's a lot. So these two organizations came together and they wanted to look at the association of vaping with contracting COVID-19 and the severity of the disease. This was all predicated on the premise that the CDC had made the claim that smoking tobacco products increased the risk of contracting a severe version of COVID-19, obviously because your lung capacity was compromised or you had damage to your lungs, and that was really the crux of the COVID thing. It attacked your lungs and things of that nature, obviously with the pneumonia. So many harm reduction experts also noted that the likelihood of death from severe symptoms is increased for smokers who were admitted. So these are people that were smokers, caught COVID-19, ended up in the hospital, and essentially they made the assumption that these are the people that were going to end up on ventilators and more than likely not be with us in the future. So in stark contrast to that, the issue with a lot of those statements had to do with the fact that not as many smokers presented in hospitals were, as expected, not many smokers actually ended up in the hospital with severe COVID-19 effects. And the potential role, and they also didn't understand what the potential role was that nicotine might have played in reducing the risk of contracting COVID-19. Those studies had not been done. They had not actually looked at those specific data sets and tried to figure out if there was a correlation between people smoking and getting COVID-19, and in turn, whether or not nicotine might have played a role in whether or not it made people more susceptible or less susceptible. So the research teams collected electronic surveys detailing, and I'm going to show you what they basically what they went after. So the research team collected electronic surveys detailing self-reports of SARS-CoV-2 infection and COVID-related risk factors, including electronic cigarette and combustible cigarette smoking history. They also used electronic health records health records data to assess COVID-19 diagnosis, positive PCR lab tests, hospitalizations, and death. So they surveyed up to 270,000 people. That they did an electronic survey, sent it out. So the real big subset
that's a good
of
chunk.
people.
Yeah.
Right. And so they didn't specifically only look at people who were e-cigarette users or people that were smokers. It went out to people of, not knowing what they used or didn't use, whether they were a smoker, former smoker, current smoker, never smoker. They basically just sent the survey out for self-reporting in relationship to people who actually contracted COVID-19. So I was just going to kind of brush through some of this stuff, just because this is where the rubber meets the road and the results of that testing. So it was a pretty comprehensive survey that was set out. So not only did they send out an initial survey, they did up to 11 follow-up surveys with these people. So they were trying to gather even more data post the initial survey. So the survey response rate was about 48%, which included 126,500 individuals with survey data on e-cigarette and combustible cigarette use who did not have known SARS-CoV-2 infection prior to the survey completion. Among survey respondents, 819 currently use e-cigarettes, 3,691 formerly used e-cigarettes. It doesn't specify whether those people cessated completely, whether they went back to smoking, whether they transferred to something different. It doesn't specify. And 122,000 people had never used e-cigarettes. So those who currently or formerly used e-cigarettes tended to be younger and were more likely to have a history of combustible cigarette or marijuana use. During the study follow-up period, there were 3,219 new SARS-CoV-2 infections after adjustment for demographic, behavioral, and clinical factors. Bottom line was there was no association with SARS-CoV-2 infection and former e-cigarette or current e-cigarette use. So they made no distinct connection between those two. Among those with SARS-CoV-2 infection, there was no association with hospitalization or death within 30 days of infection and former e-cigarette use or current e-cigarette use. So essentially, they destroyed the whole narrative that people who were smokers and or e-cigarette users currently or formerly, whether or not that particular variable was subject to them being more susceptible to catching COVID-19.
Wow.
So interesting information, interesting data. It's things like this that you don't really read too much about. They're great for argument, especially when someone wants to bring up articles trying to, effectively they don't even know about this.
This is Kaiser, so this isn't some shady little friggin', hospital that, it's out in the middle of nowhere. This is a big organization.
The problem is like other reputable, like didn't John Hopkins or something do an article that there was a relation there, but I mean, I think it seems, the reason we're seeing these studies all over the board is because there probably is nothing.
Yeah.
There is no relation.
Right. And you also have to think too, it's like some money gets pumped into these research studies anyway, right? So somebody's paying somebody to do this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And you have to question what information it is that they're looking for. And I'm not saying that they're all shady. I do think that there are some studies that are done that are specifically tailored to try to get the most negative results that you could possibly imagine to substantiate the story. Yep. And then you got to imagine that there's probably some money spent. There's probably some money spent where the results that come back don't quite substantiate what they're looking for. And then you have to imagine there's probably some money put behind some of these studies to try to garner some maybe more positive results. So I'm not saying they're all flawed. But I did an article a couple weeks ago about a group of researchers and medical officials who took a deep dive into a lot of the most prevalent studies that show up in our feeds, like links and things of that nature, where they went in and looked at how they did the study, how it was conducted, what data they were using, how they were testing, and basically said that a lot of the negative propagandized vape results or the scientific studies that come back aren't complete enough, that they just didn't do enough of that. So this sort of kind of substantiates that a little bit, just because we heard too much about this in the beginning of the pandemic, where they were like, oh, if you're a vapor, you're a smoker, you're going to catch COVID, you know.
Well, this is weird because, I mean, come on, it's Kaiser for one. I wonder if they're sharing this information with their whatever, I forget what you call it, their Kaiser world that they're in, their people, their customers. Let's just call it what they are.
I'm sure.
Customers.
I'm sure a lot of people like, you know, doctors, researchers, so on and so forth, will read this. The problem is when you have studies that say different things, people tend to latch on to the study that says the thing that they like, you know. So if you're in,
that's true.
Even though I think that there's more than enough evidence to show that there's no relationship to COVID and vaping, you know, like there's been like a few studies where they really reach and maybe like they can kind of show, oh, it's a 3% change here, but you know, somebody's still going to latch onto that if that's what they want to think.
Yep.
Sure. You'll never be able to convince everybody otherwise anyway. I just think that these are good for people who need an article to say, you know, like they might get into a Twitter battle with some people that are on both sides of the fence, and then someone inevitably is going to throw out a link to that study that said, you know,
you're a rebuttal argument. For
exactly.
Sure. Especially when this is the newest thing out, you know, you're like, well, that study's actually 6 months old. Here's the newest info on it. And looks like I'm right and you're wrong.
Right, and it's funny too, because at the very bottom of this article, they did bring up the point. They said it's excellent news, albeit a bit late, given the fake news that was spread by public health experts during the darkest days. And so, I mean, that just goes to show that, you know, people you typically latch on to the first bit of bad, because in their mind they want it to be bad. They're like, see, I told you, I knew you shouldn't have been vaping, because now your teeth are going to rot out of your face because you're vaping that you know, that sweet e-liquid or whatever. So I've gotten that a few times.
I need that link too, Tim.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's why we need to be careful also ourselves to not always, you know, only like be stuck in our echo chamber. Like we need to read some of the anti-studies, and you know, with some of them, with a lot of them, really it's the way they form the study, right? Like, you know, they're like Tim was saying, they're trying to get certain results, so they ask certain questions. But, you know, we can't always just say it's fake news every time, because there has been some stuff like we need to constantly be trying to make vaping safer and safer. So like stuff with metals, I think we need more science on the best metals for us to use.
Right.
You know, obviously other materials, common sense things like that on how to make these products better. So, you know, people shouldn't fearmonger about it like some of these researchers do, like, oh, there's heavy metals in your vape. Right. But at the same time, we should also, you know, at least research it and try to figure out how to make these products as safe as they possibly can be.
Right. No, I totally agree with you, and I think that that's always been one thing that the vape industry has been fantastic at, and that is adapting to the environment, so that when studies do come out and they say, oh, well, you know, you don't, you know, diacetyl in the e-liquid, you know, that everyone's talking about popcorn lung, and then they say, okay, fine, we can make it, and we'll just make it without diacetyl. End of story. You know, now we can kind of put that one to rest. But unfortunately, I feel like we're always outweighed with who got to the finish line first of putting the news out there. Yeah,
for sure.
So that's always.
I personally would love to see more science on metals and also sweeteners. You know, I think, you know, but the problem is like you want the science to be productive, not just like, you know, you get these certain studies where it's just they're just out to like, see, vaping's dangerous, don't do it. Like, no, like help make the products better, help make the products as safe as possible.
Right, totally agree with you on that point. So there's that. So if you guys, John's got the link, you can share it with everybody.
It's in the chat.
Now, unfortunately, we got to talk about a little bit of bad news.
Oh, Timmy.
Dude, I tried. I tried. I wanted to find that article that said vaping causes like tulips and puppies to come out of your asshole, but I just couldn't find that one.
We had the good feel one, Colorado.
Okay, hold on. So
Connecticut also.
Connecticut as well.
See,
Sorry,
you guys
Tim,
are
we're
you guys
getting
are
into Tim's news. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
you're taking the words right out of my mouth, but that's okay. So
Sorry,
it gives people some hope on the other
Yeah.
side of this bad story, right? So
Yeah.
they know they got something
All
good
right.
coming.
I
when
see what
they-
you did. I see what you
exactly.
did.
So it's not all bad.
You're like a parent. A little bit of good news.
Yeah.
Spoilers
some
are
bad
not
news, and
yeah.
then some good news.
Bad
Right,
news
so you
first.
got to yeah. So I mean, it's like you got to take them down to bring them back up, right? So
You got it.
all right, so let's talk about the elephant in the room. And this thing has kind of been going on for some time, and a lot of us knew that this was sort of on the horizon, that the FDA was going to try to make some ruling or some decision on how they were going to deal with things such as menthol cigarettes, cigars, cigarellos, the Swisher Sweets, all that stuff, all that fun flavored crap that people like. They finally did on April 28th. They came out and released 2 different proposals that addressed how they might approach this going forward. So there's still a lot of steps between now and then. Again, this isn't anything where everyone needs to flip out. Obviously, we're not smokers anymore, but there are a lot of people that still do smoke. And with that said, this inherently indirectly affects us as well, because if they want to take menthol away in cigars and cigarettes, they want to take it away in vaping as well. And so, one of the selling points that we try to, turn people on to vaping is like, hey, you can shed that old stinky, nasty smell, that gross tar feeling in your mouth and being yellow all the time. And you can have this, blueberry muffin vape, with, your nicotine mixed into it. But, some people might not want to go that far at first. I think a lot of us, when we started, we transitioned to tobacco-flavored e-liquids or really shitty cherries or something of that nature. So this does have a social impact as well, and we can talk a little...
and just like if you're against the war on drugs, then this is probably a bad idea. Like, we all hate cigarettes, but I don't think cigarettes should be banned. We know what happens with bans. They're still going to be smoking them. There's going to be illicit sales. Unfortunately, the people that end up getting in trouble are usually some of the poorer folks, black folks, people like that end up getting disproportionately affected when a certain substance is banned. And so it's just bad policy.
No, and I'm in total agreement with you on that one as well. There are a lot of people that think this is a bad idea beyond that. This isn't just sort of a one-sided affair. This is just the FDA reining in their control over tobacco and their own misguided conceptions of what they think a menthol ban. They think it would be more helpful than harmful, but I think a lot of us know the truth, and it's just a really bad idea all around. So on April 28th, the FDA released 2 proposals that would seek to ban the sale of mentholated cigarettes and cigars in an attempt to address tobacco-related health disparities. So this particular issuance affects product standards targeting menthol and other flavored tobacco products that can make smoking harder to quit, especially among youth. So the way that sentence reads, for those who might have read it a different way or heard it a different way, is they're saying that if they take away menthol cigarettes and flavored things of that nature, then the kids won't be as interested to try it. So they think if it's disgusting, they won't do it. Well, I'm here to tell you, if it comes connected to a buzz in any way, or it's some kind of a social taboo, they're just going to jump on that train anyway, because all their other buddies are going to tell them it's cool, or you're going to look cool doing it, or whatever. We were all kids once too. These specific products are disproportionately used by Black Americans and other minority groups, which Matt just made point to. And that, when you talk about menthol cigarettes, it's predominantly in the lower income areas and the Black community. So to take it away seems sort of counterintuitive. It seems like you're targeting a specific group. So I wanted to read Caliph's statement. He's the new FDA commissioner. He said, "We need a care package to help them quit." Okay, dude, what are you talking about? People don't realize that the addictiveness of nicotine ranks up there with opioids. So FDA Commissioner Robert Califf said Thursday at a hearing. And so I always disagree with that. When you think about any addiction, you could correlate to someone needing their nicotine in conjunction with, hand-to-mouth habits or stress or whatever that goes. I think about opioids and drugs, and I'm like, well, nicotine never caused me to lose my entire family and all my friends and sell all my worldly possessions so I could get more nicotine. That never happened. So, and I think they also generalize in terms of the addictions of nicotine when you talk about vaping in that same conversation, that the majority of us, a lot of us, at least on a consistent basis, aren't even vaping nicotine levels anywhere close to a cigarette for that matter. Most of us are on 3 milligram or 6 milligram. It just depends on, how much e-liquid you want to suck down in a day. But I'm still, by way of comparison is the point that I'm trying to make.
So it's the care package bullshit. It's just like that's we have a product right here that is harm reduction, but of course that'll never be in that package. Yeah. It will be patches. It will be anything that pharmaceutical feeds them and figures it's a payout by the government.
Now, agreed. It would be smart if the FDA is going to do this, which it looks like they finally are. They've been talking about it for years, and they're finally doing it. But I mean, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a couple years for all the comment periods, and there's likely to be lawsuits from Big Tobacco, so it could take a while. But it would be smart if part of their strategy was to approve some menthol vapes and then say, hey, we if you want to continue using menthol flavor, we did approve these lower risk alternatives for you. But will they do that? I don't know. I mean, they should, but because they could you're kind of killing two birds with one stone there. You have cover for why you approved it. You can say, okay, we approved menthol vapes because we banned menthol cigarettes. So that's what they can tell the antis, even though it's not going to be good enough, but still you have an excuse.
Right.
And then there is at least something for those menthol smokers to use, as opposed to just because right now, most of them are going to go to regular cigarettes, and the rest of them are going to probably buy menthol's black market, and just a small, tiny smidgen of a percentage might quit smoking. Yeah. But it's going to be very, very, very minute and unrecognizable in any of the smoking graphs and stuff.
Right. And you're probably going to encounter far more angry people if you go through with a ban like this than you're going to encounter a bunch of people who are like, oh my God, thank you, FDA. Yeah. I was waiting for the moment to quit, and now you just offered it to me. No, they're gonna.
Do they?
They probably do.
I didn't know that they had a menthol.
They probably do. Yeah. I'm not going to read the proposal numbers because I don't think anybody will remember them anyway. Let's just talk about what these two proposals are. The first proposed rule would prohibit tobacco manufacturers and retailers from making, distributing, and selling cigarettes containing menthol as a flavor. So that would be the one big hit. And the second one would ban all characterizing flavors, including menthol in cigars. Now, to be honest with you, I didn't even know there was menthol cigars available.
I never even seen one either.
I know about like the Swisher Sweets and the cigarellos, but those are more like a mini cigar, which has a tobacco taste, or they have the flavored ones, which we all know what everybody uses those for. So, I mean, in that regard, I didn't know there was menthol. Maybe they're just closing loopholes and covering bases, or like, I'm not really sure. Like, oh, they can't get cigarettes. All right, we'll just put menthol in cigars, and
just in case the cigar
everybody will look like
decides.
They're getting ready to go golfing or something. I have no idea. Everybody will have their cognac in their hand.
Yeah, they're just waiting. Sure. That's what it is. They're probably concerned that if they take them away from cigarettes, then the cigar companies will just make their own, and they're just closing a loophole.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Both need to be finalized after public comment period. It didn't specify in this article when that comment period runs until. It did say that it began on May 4th. So if you want to comment on this, or you feel the need to speak up on this particular subject, the public comment period is open now. You can voice your opinions. Is CASAA going to do anything with this? Matt?
We talked about it, but I think we said something on it, but like, as far as doing a call to action, we kind of felt like we shouldn't, just because
it's right on the edge.
Some people are going to, there's a lot of vapors that think cigarettes should be banned, first off, a lot. And in second, it's like not real, we focus on the harm reduction alternatives. It's not really in our wheelhouse. We have, think that we've been asked what our position was on it by a few people, and we did say we were against it, and for the reason, basically ideological reasons, right? It's a war on drugs, it's a ban, it's going to put more people in prison, and it's just going to make you're going to have a bunch of illegal cigarettes, could be even more unsafe, and who knows? Look at what happened to Eric Garner, where he was killed by police for selling selling
cigarettes on the street corner. Yeah.
So it's just bad policy, regardless. But as far as doing a call to action, it's a little bit trickier. How do you frame it?
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean, I unless you can take this and somehow inherently link it to something that could negatively affect vaping in the same breath, I don't know that that's a benefit of doing a call to action for any of us to stand up and defend cigarettes.
Well,
there's definitely they're gonna be probably even better than the vape industry at fighting this. Big Tobacco is going to break out the big guns for this one.
Oh, hell yeah.
So
I thought one of the proposals was adding e-liquid. I thought I read that somewhere, that they were one of the proposals in the beginning was adding e-liquid as well. Wasn't it? I remember it.
There were bills where they tried to do that, where they were trying to ban flavors in vaping and also menthol cigarettes.
Right.
But for this is through the FDA. Yeah. So this is different from, a bill in Congress. And this has always just been about menthol cigarettes.
Right. Yeah. Yep. And that's how I usually hear it talked about, is where they kind of at the city and state level bans, they usually lump it all in together. It's all about flavors in general.
Yeah, and there was a federal ban, I think, last year that ended up getting killed in the House, and it was really just because we were attached to menthol. That's why it got killed. Yeah, it got killed. Because a lot of people thought it would cause issues for social justice. They're not wrong. They didn't want to criminalize more substances. And so, you had some progressives that actually stood up against it just because of the menthol issue, even though they don't know anything about vape stuff.
Yeah, right. And I think they came up to the issue that it was picking on one minority group and just going to put more of them in prison and jail for that reason. And again, too, even if this were to pass, again, it runs into the same situation where it depends on the state. I mean, the state can just say, you know what, great for you, but we're not going to do it here in Utah, or we're not going to do it here in Colorado.
Yeah, I mean, when it's FDA, it's a little different, but here's the thing. The cigarette companies are just going to comply because they are big-ass corporations with shareholders and stuff. They're not going to be rogues like small vaping companies where they're just like, fuck you, anyway. So, I mean, I don't think...
I'll sell it out of my car, damn it.
I think they're all going to comply anyway. And, I doubt most of the states are going to fight it if this happens. But the big fight's going to be Big Tobacco against FDA, and it could get really interesting. It could be something that ends up getting national news if this thing ends up in the courts. And I don't know exactly what arguments they're going to use, but there's probably going to be some constitutional arguments used, and it's just going to be very interesting to see. And hopefully it is. Hopefully it maybe people realize it's a bad idea to keep banning substances it's like we learn lessons on some things. Like we've learned our lesson on pot, and things of that nature, but psychedelics, but then with nicotine, we haven't learned our lesson.
Well, I hope it doesn't take 200 years.
Well, I think it'll be a long, drawn-out fight. So, seen as a boon for public health, if it is successful in getting it's seen as a boon for public health if it is successful in getting menthol smokers to quit or deters people from taking up cigarettes. And it's also seen as a blow to cigarette makers who are already suffering lower than usual sale numbers, as well as the governments who rely on that tax income that comes from the sale of those cigarettes. So just for point of reference, 37% of cigarettes sold in the year of 2020 were menthol. So just under half, but 37%. I finished as a menthol smoker, started as a regular cigarette, and then finished as menthol. The FDA has the position that menthol flavors encourage youth and young adults to take up smoking. So these proposals are designed to make smoking less appealing, and they feel the same about cigars. So again, one of the juggernauts behind a lot of this stuff, especially the stuff that goes on, and we see all these fights going on, one of the most vocal advocates of these types of proposals and things moving forward is Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. They are always seemingly at the table, or the one pushing the particular issue.
And while I disagree with it, at least this fits more into their wheelhouse than the vape thing did.
Yeah,
like,
it does.
Their whole thing was supposed to be to go after cigarettes, not.
Yeah. Well, once they commonplace the name tobacco and then associate it to vaping, and because it might be more attractive with colors and flavors and all that other stuff, you figure they probably jump on that bandwagon. Yeah. So they applauded the FDA moves, but Big Tobacco shockingly pushed back, arguing that smokers will continue to use regular cigarettes or turn to black market products if the alternatives aren't desirable. Nearly 85% of all non-Hispanic black smokers report using menthol cigarettes. Wow. 85%. Wow. Compared to just 30% of non-Hispanic white smokers. There was a comment by, what's his name? It's down here. Myers, I believe, is his name. Or
Matt
is it
Myers.
Andrews? Yeah, Myers. It was in here somewhere. I'll lose it. I have no way to earmark half this stuff. We'll come back to it. A federal menthol ban may cost the U.S. government up to $6.6 billion in lost excise taxes, which can represent 40% of the cigarette's retail price. So $6.6 billion in lost taxes by banning menthol cigarettes. However, I think we need to understand the scope of that. So you think, to any of us sitting here, $6.6 billion is a nice chunk of change. It's a lot of money. It's like, why are you going to ban it if you're going to throw away that kind of coin?
That was my grocery bill last month, Tim.
What? Yeah, I believe it. If you live in California, the loss is just a fraction of what the government might save if the ban leads to fewer smokers. So, according to the CDC, smoking-related illnesses cost the U.S. $300 billion a year. That's what it costs the government to help with people who have smoking-related illnesses. So to them, that 6.6 might not seem like a whole lot of money when you're saving yourself that much, including 5.6 billion due to secondhand smoke exposure. So $305 billion spent in treating cigarette-related illnesses, and but people will argue for this. Here's the comment from Andrews. He said, if the FDA were serious about reducing smoking rates, they would accept the science and follow the recommendation of over 100 of the world's leading medical bodies to embrace reduced-risk tobacco alternatives such as e-cigarettes, which have been proven 95% safer than combustible cigarettes. So he did put that information out there, things that we talk about on the regular.
Oh, that's Tim Andrews. I gotcha. Yeah, sorry. I thought you were talking Matt Myers from Camp CTFK.
No. I think Myers did speak up here. He did have some comments up here. He said these rules will once and for all put an end to those predatory and deadly practices.
Yeah.
So, sounds like something he would say.
He pulled a dictionary out.
So I think just people should be aware that, I know it's been talked about, but now it's actually sort of somewhat in motion. So people should be aware that that these things could indirectly affect us as well. So that's your bad news. That's your bad news. All right, so let's move on to the good news. Spoiler alert. 2 flavor ban bills are dead in Colorado and Connecticut. Connecticut, if you're going to spell
Blue
it.
states.
Yeah. So 2 bills got shot down. First one in Connecticut. This one actually was a little bit more probably saved by the bell, I guess is the best way to say that. This actually never reached a vote in the final committee, or because the session ran out of time. They just never got to it. So it died on the table. So for Connecticut, time ran out on the General Assembly's 2022 session, and in turn, SB 367 died without a final vote in either body, neither the House nor the Senate. Apparently, this is the 4th time that Connecticut's tried to pass a flavored ban.
They've been really good at fighting it too. And what they do, what the advocates have done, like I know SAFAD has been pretty active in Connecticut. They get it they get language into the bill where like at least they'll allow flavors into adult, 21 and over establishments.
Mhm.
If they get that language in, then Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids and all the other health groups are like, fuck it, we don't even want this bill. Just let it die. They don't even want it. And so like this has happened multiple times in a few different states, and I think it's happened multiple times in Connecticut as well. But don't quote me. But it's a good tactic. Like they throw a fit, the antis throw a fit if they don't get their way, and they just say they give up because they don't want that bill. They'd rather fight for the bill they want next session.
Next session.
Yeah, I think they kind of did lightly comment to that amended bills had come back before with keeping it 21 and over into only adult stores. And so one of the things they talked about lightly in this was that there was not a lot of synergy or co-support from a lot of the anti-vaping organizations, because they all kind of had their own twist on what they wanted or didn't want, or whether that was enough or not enough. And so they could not be in sync, and then therefore it made it harder and harder for them to fight and get the bill that they wanted passed. And so vape advocacy effectively wins out in the end. So it just had very little unity in the anti-vaping organization community. And so that's one. So in Connecticut, congratulations, your flavors are safe for now. Considering you're surrounded by 4 other states that actually have flavor bans. So, if people want to move to your house because they like to vape, don't be surprised. You might be people
right at the border, Tim.
You need a roommate. You need a roommate
right at the border.
Exactly. So, and then the one that Amanda was touting out on Twitter and Facebook, in Colorado, HB 1064 had already passed the state house and made it through the first Senate committee meeting. However, it failed to get through the Senate Appropriations Committee, which rejected the bill by a vote of 5-2. On Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids, they spent about $180,000 to try to get this bill passed, and that horribly failed. But shockingly enough, to counter that, Big Tobacco spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in opposition to the bill. Yeah. So basically, they didn't want this particular ban, so they put more money up than Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids.
Big Tobacco, they'll be for and Juul, which is obviously part of Big Tobacco now. They'll be for the bans if there's a clause in there that says, if it's approved, if it gets a PMTA approval, then it's allowed to sell. Right, but if it's just a blanket forever flavor ban, then they fight it.
Which is kind of good. I mean,
yeah. I mean, it just goes to show, like, sometimes they're on our side, sometimes they're not. Really, just depending on they're all about the dollar.
Rod,
obviously.
I don't know what Jersey's policy is for shipping in. I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea what you can or can't get into Jersey. I'm sure things can sneak in.
That's one of those states.
I'm just saying. I'm sure there's some things.
Just saying.
Just saying.
Just saying.
So 25 lobbyists and firms, all working on behalf of Campaign for Tobacco Free Kids, were defeated by effectively the vaping advocates. The vaping advocates and Big Tobacco had a hand in that. And then I wanted to read Amanda's comment, which is somewhere down here at the very bottom.
Very bottom.
Yeah, at the very bottom.
It's always at the very, very, very bottom.
Yeah, it's like the E-Valley articles. It's like you don't find out that they were smoking a black market THC cart until like the last 2 sentences of a 14-page article. Colorado rejecting the flavor ban is a signal. This is Amanda Wheeler, by the way, everyone. Colorado rejecting the flavor ban is a signal for other jurisdictions to refocus public health efforts on what works: vaping. Nicotine vaping is the single most effective smoking cessation method ever devised. Lawmakers can learn from Colorado. Flavor bans don't work, but promoting vape products does help adults quit smoking and keeps adults from relapsing to deadly cigarettes. So great work by Amanda Wheeler and her team out there. That's effectively your vaping rifle.
She helped kill the Denver flavor ban a month or two ago as well. So they've been having a lot of success in Colorado. Yep. And this is a good sign, especially when we had so many freaking bans, during 2019 and 2020. I think that they have less appetite for it. I was telling you guys before the show started, like, there's less appetite for it. There's not as much outrage about vaping as there was 2 years ago. And, with the economy we're in now, no one wants to be known as a job killer.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, do you think a little bit has to do with the numbers that San Francisco is pulling? Because that's pretty much one of the major cities that have effectively done the ban, and they've seen the numbers now that people are going back to smoking, and they're seeing what's taking place there. You got to assume some cities are looking into that as well.
Yeah, I think that, I know advocates and lobbyists use those numbers too, but San Francisco is a little bit different because they did a full ban, not just a flavor ban. Yeah. But still, you could still, it's definitely worthwhile showing legislators, like, look what's happened with the smoking rates amongst youth and adults since that ban. So it could still be used as an argument, and I'm sure it is being used that way.
Yeah. Well, we are at that time. I want to thank Matt again for joining us. It was awesome having you on the show, Matt.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been fun having you. Thank you, Mr. Tim Swift. Paul, thank you as well. And again, thank you, Amanda and Rocky. What is that? Who are they? Rocky Mountain Smoke Free. Almost there. Alliance.
Well, that and AVM.
AVM, yeah. Thank you for all your hard work. We got to get Amanda back on the show. I'm going to send her a DM. I know she's super busy, so we'll try to get her back on the show again. And Matt, you want to throw out some last minute words, some motivation, some get out there and what is that saying, Tim? Give me one of those old dad sayings.
Keep on keeping on.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
That's as dad as I could get.
Those are prominent words.
Those are prominent words.
Yeah. When the tough get going, when the going gets tough, the tough get going.
Yeah, with the pat on the back, the little pat on the back. Yeah, you go out there, son. You be the best you can be.
Exactly.
All right, thank you again, Tim. Thank you, everybody out there for watching tonight. We'll see everybody back next Wednesday at 6 p.m. Same channel, same place. And again, thank you, Matt. Thank you for joining us, man.
Thanks.